Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Good to see you all. And familiar faces, and many familiar faces. A few new faces scattered across the globe as we are. Mostly US, Canada, and the UK. And I'm sure we're all now very familiar with using Zoom. We've become Zoom experts. Probably tired of Zooming. So let's begin, as we usually do, with a little meditation, a guided meditation. And then I'll offer some teachings, and then we'll have dialogue. Okay? So get comfortable, and let's begin. So first, allow your body to settle comfortably. And allow your awareness to shift from its usual location in the brain, in the head, in the mind, to the body. So drop your awareness down into the body and let yourself experience the body from the inside, not from above, like looking down from on high, but allowing awareness to be intimate with your sensate experience. Sensing arms and legs, shoulders, hands. Sensing the rising and falling of your chest and belly as you breathe in and out. Sensing your hips and legs and feet. Notice that for you in this moment, the body consists of your experience of the body, which is sensation. There is no solidity to the body in your direct experience. There's only sensation, which is constantly changing, shifting, unfolding. Notice the play of sensation. You couldn't stop it even if you had to. It's got its own dynamic. And notice also that sensation, which is your experience of the body, is not separate from awareness. Awareness and experience, awareness and sensation are inextricably intertwined, inseparable. teacher Jean Klein used to say, there's nothing perceived, no one perceiving, there's just perceiving itself, just perceiving, just experiencing. No separate someone experiencing. Allow this experiencing to very naturally expand and extend beyond the arbitrary boundaries of the body that mark inside and outside. Expand in every direction, back and front, side to side, up and down. Just naturally opening and expanding in every direction. To include all experience, both so-called inside and so-called outside the body. Global awareness. The sounds, the smell, all the other sensations. Nothing left out, all inclusive. No boundaries, no edges, no preferences, no picking and choosing. This awareness that we are embraces everything, embraces all experience. Awareness like the sky. No boundaries. Sky doesn't pick and choose between planes and balloons and birds. This openness is all inclusive, open, awake, and welcoming, loving. Rest as this openness. The sense of being separate, someone naturally and very gently falls away as you realize yourself to be the welcoming. Someone were to ask you right now, who are you? You might not be able to find someone inside there whom the word I refers. Just this. Or you might say, I'm nothing, and I'm everything. All the efforting and striving naturally falls away. Nowhere to go, nothing to realize. That's this ungraspable moment. You find your attention gets stuck or fixated anywhere. Just let it go. Come back to the openness. To open to the openness. The Diamond Sutra of Zen says, cultivate a mind that dwells nowhere. Okay, then let go of the meditation as such, but we might like to continue to rest in this open global awareness throughout the rest of our time together, even beyond if you feel inspired. So great to see everyone again. So today I feel moved to talk about one of the core themes of human life, one we don't spend too much time talking about, but it's always in some way in the center of our lives, and that's death. I just discovered a few days ago that a dear friend, one of my closest friends, was diagnosed unexpectedly with an aggressive form of cancer that had metastasized to the bone, right? So I'm sure we've all had this kind of experience where someone close to us has contracted what is in effect a terminal illness, and how that's deeply impacted us, right? So it's caused me to stop and pause and reflect and feel deeply. And I think that in line with this topic of finding deeper ground, which is the title of this satsang, and the title of everything I've been doing in the last few months, I think that COVID-19 brings us to that edge, doesn't it? To the edge of death. We don't talk about that much, but it's certainly lurking in the shadows. And it's certainly on our minds when we put on our masks and keep 6 feet apart and wash our hands, right? And what exactly are we doing? We're trying to avoid death, right, ultimately. So, and death is a theme that pervades all the spiritual traditions, of course. You could say that all spirituality and all religion is an attempt to answer the question of death, in one way or another. And certainly Buddhism is founded on contemplation of death. In Zen, of course, it's said that you to die before you die, which is a way, of course, of preparing for actual death. And then Tibetan tradition, there are the 4 thoughts or reminders that turn the mind toward the Dharma. And the first one is death is real, comes without warning. This body will be a corpse. Couldn't be more direct than that, right? And in fact, in medieval and Renaissance times in Europe, people used to keep, certainly philosophers and poets, would keep a human skull on their desk. This was called memento mori, reminder of death. The constant reminder that death is real and comes without warning, right? So I'm going to read a little poem from Hafiz. And one of my favorite Hafiz poems, I always have to say when I say a poem is by Hafiz or Rumi, it's a version of Hafiz or Rumi by someone translating it into English. But I happen to like this, even though it's maybe has nothing to do with what Hafiz really said, but I think it's a beautiful poem. And it speaks to this. And we can take little bits of this and talk about it. Some of you probably heard this. Death is a favor to us, but our scales have lost their balance. The impermanence of the body should give us great clarity, deepening the wonder in our senses and eyes of this mysterious existence we share and are surely just traveling through. If I were in a tavern tonight, Hafiz would call for drinks. And as the master poured, I would be reminded that all I know of life and of myself is that we are just a mid-air flight of golden wine between his pitcher and his cup. If I were in the tavern tonight, I would buy freely for everyone in the world, because our marriage with the beauty of time and space cannot endure very long. Death is a favor to us, but our minds have lost their balance. This miraculous existence and impermanence of form always makes the illumined ones laugh and sing. So there's a lot in that poem that I think one could spend a lot of time just contemplating and talking about that poem, right? In fact, you could say all the spiritual teachings are in this poem, right? The permanence of the body should give us great clarity, deepening the wonder in our senses and eyes of this mysterious existence we share and are surely just traveling through. Right? So, to be reminded of impermanence, or what in the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism is called emptiness. Thich Nhat Hanh used to say, this cup is already broken. He would have a cup on the table and he said, this cup is already broken, because I know that, in the history of this cup, it's going to fall, it's going to break. So when I look at the cup, I see the impermanence of the cup, right? So how do we contemplate our lives, right? So from the point of view of our human sight, the human point of view, that is, from the point of view of identifying as this body and mind, right? We can contemplate the body as we did today and remind ourselves that this body is dying, it's decaying, it's aging, it's declining, right? Certainly if we're over 40, as most of us, but not all of us are, we're sort of on the downhill side, right? We're gradually coasting toward old age and death, right? If we're over 50 and 60, we picked up speed, right? So, so from the point of view of being a person, we can contemplate, we get sick, we don't remember as well as we used to, we don't get over a cold as quickly as we used to, aches and pains, right? All of these things are reminders that identifying with the body and the mind is a setup for suffering, John would say, right? Because little by little, we're going to lose what we're so identified with, what we're so attached to. So this is a reminder not to identify, right? We can take it as something to lament, to complain about, to feel regret and pain about, but in fact it's also an opportunity to sit up and say, yep, gradually, little by little, this body and this mind are not functioning the way they used to, and eventually they're not going to function at all, right? And the illness of a friend, a dear friend, or a parent, or a child, or a partner, or another family member, is a reminder of this, right? Because we're so close to the people in our lives that their body is our body, right? Their suffering is our suffering. So when they suffer, we have a foretaste of what it's like for us. And I was already feeling that with my friend. I could already feel myself going with him on this journey already. And I imagine it's going to be quite a ride, you know. And my friend, fortunately, is quite awake and not identified with the body, or at least as little as one can possibly be, being that we are embodied beings, right? Of course, that's the paradox, which we'll talk about a little bit. So to be reminded to see the impermanence, not only not in this body, but in everything. The cup is already broken, right? Our little dog who we love so much is not as spry as he or she used to be. The flowers have wilted and, you know, summer is coming to an end, whatever it might be, right? Reminders of impermanence, you know? And not only impermanence, but to really be able to see the emptiness of things. See, impermanence was an early concept in Buddhism, but in the growth of Buddhism, and I think the early Buddhists saw this as well, but they didn't quite have the words for it. The emptiness of it, the insubstantiality, just like we were doing in our meditation. If you really sense into the body, what you realize is the only thing you can know of the body is your experience of the body. And your experience of the body is not solid. The experience of the body is just sensation. The solidity is just an appearance. You know, for example, I put my hand on my thigh, and it seems solid. You know, it seems really solid, right? Oh, you know. I can feel the muscles, just went for a walk, I can feel the muscles in my thigh, isn't that great? You know, but if I really stop for a moment and close my eyes, is that solidity, or is that simply a direct experience that we call solidity? But is there anything actually solid that we can hold on to, right? That's permanent, that's has a solid, lasting substantiality to it. And you know, deep meditation, deep contemplation, we discover that that's not the case. You know? So, from the perspective of being, you know, human beings, meditating, contemplating, that's one way to look at it. From the perspective of the timeless, of being the timeless, of being emptiness itself. When emptiness, you know, if we realize ourselves as timeless awareness, not identified with the body and the mind, boundless consciousness, sometimes called awareness, which is not identified with the body, although it expresses itself to this body. It's also free of this body, right? The deathless. You know? When this looks out on reality, what it sees is itself. What it sees is emptiness, the empty essence of everything, everywhere. You know? So when we rest as awareness, as the emptiness that we are, and gaze out, what we see everywhere is emptiness. Gazing with sheer awareness into sheer awareness, habitual abstract structures melt into the fruitful springtime of awakening. This is a poem from the Tibetan Mahabodhi tradition, yeah? So gazing with sheer awareness into sheer awareness. Emptiness gazing into emptiness. All it sees is emptiness, yeah? Which you could say is also perfection. From a human perspective, everything is imperfect. It could use a little improvement, always, right? I gotta adjust the picture, it's a little off balance. I've gotta eat a little food because I'm getting hungry. I've got to brush my hair because, all this stuff. We're constantly moving in that way through life, right? But from the perspective of our essence, empty, awake, loving essence that we are, everything is perfect just as it is. No need for improvement or for changing anything, yeah? And then the manifestation is just the clothing that this empty essence assumes in this lifetime, in the realm of manifestation. So we're able to see into the essence, beyond the form, into the empty essence. So to contemplate in this way turns us back upon ourselves and it invites us to reflect on who I really am. If everything is empty, if I can perceive everything as empty of substantiality, it's constantly changing, then who am I? Is there something abiding in here that's substantial and permanent? Can I find anything? Can I locate it? No. So in this sense, we realize there's nothing to hold on to, right? There's nothing to identify with, and any identification, any attachment, any fixation to any particular form is destined to cause suffering because the forms are just constantly dissolving, melting away, changing into different forms. Morphing would be the word, right? Constantly morphing, including this body, including this mind. Have you ever sometimes wondered if there's any consistency in your mind whatsoever? One day, you have one mood, the next day or the next moment, you have a completely different mood and a completely different set of thoughts, and a completely different point of view, right? With different feelings. So, just the attempt to find anything there that's consistent and substantial is destined to failure, yeah? If we deeply reflect. And at the same time, at the human level, we do attach, right? We love and we attach to our children, our parents, our partner, our friends. This is one of the profound paradoxes of being human, is that, and one that we can never completely resolve. The mind can't resolve these profound spiritual paradoxes. We're both nothing and everything and something and someone. At the same time, we are this empty, wakeful, loving essence, which is welcoming everything as it is. At the same time, we prefer chocolate to vanilla. We love some people more because they're close to us. We feel very close to some people, and when they get sick, when they're unhappy, when they die, we feel their pain, and we die with them, right? So that can't be denied at the same time. Too much spirituality, particularly in the non-dual brain, tends to kind of want to leave that part out, It's kind of easier and keeps the equation kind of simple, but refuses to embrace the paradox. So loss is inevitable if we allow ourselves to be fully human, and there's going to be a certain amount of suffering. As my first Zen teacher used to say, the suffering to be in this world, is what he called it. simply to be a human being, right? So then there's a certain amount of suffering that just goes along with that. Chogyam Trungpa, one of my teachers, in his book, Shambhala, the Sacred Warrior, said, in the heart of the sacred warrior, by which he meant the Bodhisattva, there's always sadness. There's always sadness. Not there's no feeling. He didn't say that. So some teachers would like us to believe there's no feeling. It's neutral. In the heart of the sacred warrior, there's always sadness. Sadness for the suffering of the world. So we can't shut our hearts, our very tender human hearts, to the suffering, to the pain of others. So those of us who thought that spirituality and awakening was going to be a buffer from the human experience, a place to hide out, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It's not my experience. But at the same time, there isn't all that that extra suffering that comes with all the additional stories we add to our direct experience. Someone close to us gets sick and dies, of course we're going to grieve. But we're not going to add on all the woe is me, it shouldn't have happened, and what am I going to do without them stories that just extenuate and intensify the suffering. And yet, there will be suffering, So death, back to our theme, to remember, memento mori, right? To remember that we're going to die. It's easy to kind of fall into the trance of immortality, particularly in the West, or I should say the westernized world, since that includes much of Asia these days. It used to be, there's a famous story that was told about the Buddha. A woman came to the Buddha with her dead little boy in her arms, and she was moaning and crying and saying, "Oh, it's so terrible! I lost my only son, my only child. It's so awful." And he said, this is the way of human life, that we're going to lose what we love. And he said, go out and find me and bring me a mustard seed from a home in which no one has ever died. And the woman went out and spent several weeks looking and came back and said, I couldn't find it because every home I went to, someone had died there. And she was chastened and deepened by this experience. Now, nowadays, we have to be hard pressed to find a home in which someone has died. We all die in hospitals these days, most of us. Right? But death is no less ubiquitous, it's just out of sight. Right? And so to really open our eyes to our mortality from moment to moment. And I think one of the gifts of COVID-19, I would say, as I wrote a little about in my essay that I posted, is, talked about the groundlessness, is the memento mori, the reminder of death. It's, in the Middle Ages, of course, if you've ever seen the Seventh Seal, Ingmar Bergman's great film with death, with the hood and the whole thing playing chess, with the main character, So in the Middle Ages, death had a hood and a staff, So we don't have that representation, which actually is the glyph for Saturn in the astrological tradition. Saturn is associated with death and old age. So we don't have that, but to remember that this body is going to die. Now, who we are, that's deathless. That's birthless and deathless. And the reminder of death is not to make us depressed or sad, but to remind us to keep turning back upon our true nature, which is untouched, is not born, is not died, is not killed, destroyed, is not disturbed, is timeless, pure awareness. So as Hafiz said, death is a favor to us because our scales have lost their balance. The impermanence of the body should give us great clarity, deepening the wonder. I really love that. Deepening the wonder. See, if we're aware of death, then our wonder, our gratitude. I actually wrote a post recently about wondering and gratitude. If we didn't die, we wouldn't have the capacity for wonder. This is my sense, because wonder is what we do in the case of impermanence. We wonder at the beauty of that which is going to die. Right? If everything were permanent and undying, we'd, there wouldn't be that sense of gratitude for this moment, this precious moment that is given to us now, this precious now. The gratitude, I think, arises from our mortality. So it deepens the wonder, deepening the wonder in our senses and eyes of this mysterious existence we share and are surely just traveling through. And as the master poet, I be reminded that all I know of life and of myself is that we are just a mid-air flight of golden wine between his pitcher and his cup. Beautiful metaphor, beautiful image. Because our marriage with the beauty of time and space. In time and space, the world that appears in time and space, however empty and impermanent, is certainly beautiful. And what is so amazing is that the world that we encounter, which is, of course, the creation of our senses, I mean, there's no world out there that looks the way it does here. The world that we perceive is the result of our senses. Right? A fly sees it completely differently. Or a dog or a cat sees it completely differently, right? So the world that we see, which is actually a projection of our senses, isn't it amazing that it's so beautiful to these eyes? Isn't it amazing that we live in a world that's beautiful to us? We could live in a world that was ugly to us, but we don't. We live in a world, for some reason, that's beautiful to us. What an incredible gift. And to appreciate that, I think remembering that it's not here forever, it's just a mid-air flight of golden wine between the pitcher and the cup. So death is a favor to us, but our minds have lost their balance. The miraculous existence and impermanence of form always makes the illumined ones, the awakened ones, laugh and sing. So, there we are. Thank you, dear friends. Just a little reflection on our mortality. So let me just open it up, 40 minutes for questions, insights, comments, dialogue on this and any other relevant theme to our topic, or finding deeper ground, which probably includes just about everything. feel free to raise your hand if you would like. Yeah, Garrison.
Hi. That's a lot to take in. And one of the questions I have about death is if who we really are is deathless and timeless, and the body is impermanent. How, I know there's some disparity among some of the Eastern religions about euthanasia. I'm wondering what you think about that. You know, people who are sick with COVID that are, or anything, your friend, terminally ill, doesn't want to go through the bodily suffering. Is it an escape? I don't know. Is it avoiding
It's
suffering?
an individual, I think it's an individual decision. Yeah. I have no judgments.
Mm-hmm.
I've known people who've done it,
Mm-hmm.
killed themselves because they were in constant pain. For example, I have a friend whose parents committed suicide because she was in constant pain, and he went with her. I had another friend who also had an illness who was in constant pain and killed himself. So I don't, I think it's up to each of us.
Yeah, I don't have any judgment about it either, but I think some Buddhists believe, or
well, karma would say that bad karma to kill yourself. I think it's something that needs to be deeply, deeply considered, right? Am I just trying to escape, the suffering? Would I deepen a lot? Would I give myself an opportunity to deepen spiritually if I let myself really go through it to the very end, or am I just imposing some rigid idea of what I can and can't do, and causing myself unnecessary suffering? I think we each need to find within ourselves what resonates and feels true, and then of course to be aware of those around us and its impact on those around us. Of course, if we're terminally ill, we're going to die one way or another. If there really is no way out, then either way, our loved ones will experience our death. So it's different from ordinary suicide, but no. I don't think that one should impose suffering on oneself just because you have some rigid idea that it's not spiritually correct.
right.
That's what I would say. That's to err on one side. The error on the other side would be, I want to get out of here as soon as possible. I just don't want to be here. I don't want to experience any of it. Let me just, and not really allowing the situation to deepen us. Because again, death is a profound teacher. And if we're approaching death, to be able to go as far as we can into that experience, I think would be, I'm actually sort of looking forward to the adventure. I'm sure I'll have all kinds of other feelings, when the time comes, if I'm awake enough to have any other feelings. But in some ways, it's a grand adventure. What is that going to be like? That's going to be quite a trip.
Right.
But I think each of us has to find out for himself.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Garrison. Yeah, I think it's a great question. Yeah, surely. Hi there. Hi.
I did have an experience, I didn't have what was given to me as a terminal illness, but I kind of received it as such. because I was diagnosed 12 years ago with stage 3 cancer. And to me, the way I received that was really the facing of death.
Yes.
And it just turned my life. It really opened life to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still grateful for.
Death is a favor to us.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, because you know, because of course we have notions of death, and but it was so different, and I think the dying before you die is that kind of letting go of the illusion of permanence and controllability and everything that we hang on to. I mean, it's kind of, you know, I guess it's fortunate that we can perhaps see that before we actually leave our body. So there's a little bit of room there for some exploration and wonder and gratitude and
right. You get a trial run.
right. Yes, you have a little yeah, you're granted life within that kind of understanding that it's not yours. You know, that it's absolutely. I think that's one thing that I think death can convey is that this life doesn't belong to us in the way that we think, and that's death is I think in a sense an ultimate teacher that if it were ours, it would be like, well, I don't think so. You know, I don't think I'll do that. So it's and paradoxically, I think there's such a gift to that, and yet, of course, there's so much fear around it.
Right.
And I feel like it's an ongoing learning about what death can teach, just
Right.
and other people. What is it when someone disappears like that? You know, to those who aren't disappeared in the same way.
Right. It's an ongoing teaching. It's not just once. It's
Right.
constant throughout our lives. Can be if we're awake to it, attuned to it, paying attention. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, then there's always a possibility that you can forget the reality of death and fall into believing just into some illusion of permanence again.
Right.
So pervasive.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Shirley.
Yeah.
And again, we don't have to have, you know, a terminal illness or stage 3 cancer or a brush with death to begin to contemplate our mortality, for sure. Just being aware of the changes that are going on, you know, and then to really, when someone close to us does get ill, not to push it away, not to rush to some kind of attempt to control it or make it better or different, but just to be with what gets stirred up. Because, you know, even if we're going into our own death or the illness or death of a friend with our eyes wide open, and coming to it with awakened awareness, we're still going to have feelings as a human being, absolutely, and not to think that it's spiritually correct not to be affected by it. but to really be open, fully open to whatever arises. You know, I think that's so important. Embrace our experience just as it is. Yeah. Thank you. Garrison, do you have something more? Is that, or is that, no, that's from the report. Yeah, great. Okay. No one else want to share? It's a sobering topic.
Stephen, I think Penny has something to say.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Great. Okay, Penny, yeah. You unmute yourself? Yeah, great.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting. I'm going through a period of time in the background of COVID. It's the anniversary of my dad's death 4 years ago. And obviously part of me died when he died. And I feel I'm only just now letting go of that old self and beginning to live from a more awakened place. And interestingly, for the last 2 weeks, I've had plantar fasciitis after running. And I've been very laid up and very challenged. And I've been very identified with the pain of it and the suffering, which is very real and very painful. But it's kind of been a useful reminder to kind of live life from awareness and not to over-identify and fixate. And what I have to keep reminding myself is it's life, death, life, death, life, death. It's you know, it doesn't stop. And
Right.
this will pass, and I'll continue to evolve and live, and just to be reminded that I don't have to fixate on this particular thing that's happening right now, and this new self is emerging, and the way that pain and what's slowing me down physically is enabling that awareness to arise. It's just a really interesting time.
Exactly. It reminds us of the body being you know, limited and mortal, and you know, you know, and that's just a simple way. You know, I find the same way. You know, I like to get out and do my, you know, vigorous morning walks or whatever it might be. But you know, some days I don't feel up to it, or my, you know, leg is hurting or whatever. You know, as a reminder, you know, this is not a machine we're living in. You know, we're living in this very vulnerable, fragile human form. You know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Penny.
It's a gift. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a gift, indeed. Indeed, yeah. From the mystery. You know. And each moment is a gift from the mystery. Huh? You know. If we can just keep coming back to that, keep remembering that, we get so taken away into the future and objectifying and planning. It actually just reminds me. I was very when I was in college, I think, or even in high school. I remember reading Sartre, you know, and his idea of en soi and pour soi, for itself and in itself, and the idea that we objectify reality and take it to be something for us rather than seeing it for what it is, right? And so we objectify reality and turn it into something solid, which we then use for our purposes in our strategies to maximize our achievements and pleasure or whatever, you know. And in that moment, we lose that ability to see it for what it is, which is empty. It's not like we, of course, can't use things, but at the same time that we're moving through reality and using things for our purposes, but at the same time be aware of the impermanence and the empty nature of it. Otherwise, we, what shall I say? We move very much into a subject, object, self and other. I'm here manipulating this external world, and we lose that sense of interbeing, interconnectedness. Again, which does not mean we don't, you know, but at the the same time to maintain that sense of fluidity and openness. Emptiness here, gazing out at the emptiness there. Someone else. Yeah, truly. Okay.
Just what you just said about, you know, that movement towards fluidity. I was just wanted your kind of response to, you know, with the when our people close to us, or you know that we know, or whomever dies, and then there's yet that trace of that life in our lives.
Absolutely.
You know, that just to speak to that's such a mysterious thing, and just to speak to the importance of, you know, not making that into something for our, you know, manipulation, or, you know, something that if,
Well, for example, what do you mean? What would be an
well, when
example?
people who've died, that have been in our lives, there is a trace of that in our life, you know,
Of course.
right? And you know, sometimes there can be that tendency to make a thing of that memory, of that recollection, of the trace of that person in our lives.
So say what you mean by make something of that. I'm interested.
A kind of, well, it can be a fixation, but it can be stuck in that image of the person who isn't that, you know?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and yet it's not, there's not this complete disappearance when the person dies.
Right.
So
Yeah, but yeah, well, it's the same when people are still alive, right?
true.
We take them to be a certain way. We have an image of them, and we kind of fixate on that image, and we don't allow the multiplicity and complexity of who they are, the richness of who they are. We have some idea of them. And when we've lost someone, we can fixate on certain memories and not on other memories, or have some idea of who they were and what they meant to us, and you know, all of which is a limited view. Yeah. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sort of. It's just, I guess part of it is just this sense of complete mystery about the death.
Yeah.
You know, really, I guess it's really that. It's kind of like whenever I kind of reflect or contemplate, it's just, there's like, it's just so totally mysterious. And that, I guess, of course, to the mind is quite a little like, you know, frustrating, but I never get past that.
No.
And
The mind wants to fixate it and have a neat little story all wrapped up in some way, and yet it's, who knows, right?
or something, just something. And it's in some ways it almost strikes me stronger of the its emptiness.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right, thank you. Sam, yes, hi there. Sam, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Great. Yeah, no, thanks for the topic. It was something that caught my attention was something that you said just a little bit back about Sartre and this idea of like clinging on to experience or kind of viewing reality or experiences like they're there for us. It just got me thinking because I think that part of, so for me, the more people that I've lost and like the more real that death has become as time goes on, one of the gifts that's given me, or that I feel it has, is just is something that I've heard people talk about a lot, which is like basically thinking about like what's important for me to do while I'm here and able to experience, like what did I really want to,
Right.
like where did I want to go, who did I want to spend time with, and that's been like I think a really positive thing for me and the reaction to death. But at the same time, I get that there could be a kind of like experiential hedonism to it where it's like I'm gonna die, so I'm gonna chase after carpe diem, right? Yeah. So it's I don't know. I was just interested in hearing if you had any thoughts about like towing that line, you know, like.
Well, I think what you say, of course, I would agree with what you say, that death gives us that opportunity to reflect on, death and really our mortality, our limited time on this planet, the inevitability of death. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on what I really want to do while I'm here, especially for those of you who are younger, like you, of course. As a young guy, it's like, okay, I'm young, I'm still under 30, it's like I got my whole life ahead of me. It's like, okay, and I'm going to die. Now, what am I going to do with this life? This precious human life. I mean, people who are young don't often have that sense of this precious human life because, it's freely given and it's taken for granted and we just kind of do whatever. Some, of course, are very serious and sincere and really reflect in this way. But it's easy to forget that when you're young. But to stop and okay, I'm going to die. What do I really want to do now? For this minute, this hour, this year. Stephen Levine had a book called A Year to Live many years ago, in which it's a meditation. Some people still do it. You do a year to live meditation. In the course of a year, you contemplate on these questions. So what if I had a year to live? What would I do? What would I think? How would I act differently? It's a profound contemplation. Absolutely. Now, on the other side, carpe diem. There's, of course, the famous poem, To Its Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell, which I almost quoted from. But
I read that back in school. Yeah.
You read that in school, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the classic carpe diem poem. He's basically trying to seduce a young woman by saying, look, we don't have much time here. We're going to die soon. Let's get it on. That's
It makes it sound so good, though.
That's the other approach. I can understand that, but I would recommend that we think about it in a more somber way. Yeah.
Thank you.
But what he's basically saying in the poem is, beauty is short-lived. Let's enjoy the beauty while we have it. That makes total sense. Of course, let's relish the beauty while we have it. Yeah. So you can go both ways with it, which in a certain way is like you can go the route of renunciation, which is typically more a typical Buddhist approach. Life is short, we're going to die. Let's renounce the world and become monks and realize our true nature before we die, so that we don't have to deal with death when it comes, right? The other side of that is life is short, we're going to die. Let's relish the beauty of life as it is. I would say both are true.
Yeah.
And, I would embrace both points of view. Let's relish the beauty.
Yeah, but also be aware.
But at the same time, renounce our attachment to the world. You know, the way I understand it, the way I teach it, renunciation is not about leaving the world. Renunciation is about renouncing our dependence on the world to bring us happiness and fulfillment. You know, so we can renounce the world at the same time that we appreciate the beauty of the world. Well,
yeah, I think that sums it up really well. Thank you.
yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah. So who is Susan Bodian? Another Bodian. These are all my distant cousins who appeared out of nowhere. I'm curious. Is that your sister, your mom, your?
It's my mother.
Oh, your mother.
Yeah. I thought
Good
it'd
to
be
see you.
nice to invite her.
Yeah, how sweet. That's lovely. Yeah. We're related somewhere in the Bodian tree. And as I think I mentioned to you, my grandfather's name was Sam, so Samuel. So that's sweet. Yeah. So anyone else? We have another 10 minutes or so.
Stephen, it's Anne Marie.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, great.
Hi.
Hi there.
So, taking a different direction, I'm curious in some ways about the energetics. There's a lot of energy transmuting at this current time, right? So if we think about the energy going from the lived experience to whatever is on the other side, what is that? Does that have any impact, or does that have any, I don't know, does it have anything to do with anything, all the transition?
I'm not sure of the question. What do you mean?
Well, when we think about, if we think about all the people dying, and we think about the energy then, so if, I'll just use Mahamudra. So if Mahamudra is like a closed system, nothing leaves and nothing, no energy in, no energy out, right? So the energy stays the same. But I guess I just think of all the death right now, and I wonder, is there any kind of impact on that in terms of harmony or balance of the universal system?
I'm still not sure I understand. Mahamudra is not a closed system. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So is there anything to the energetics of all the people dying?
Energetics.
Yeah, I guess I relate that also death is a transmutation of the energy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure what death is. I mean,
Right,
I've read
okay.
things, right? I'll find out when
Right.
my comes, or perhaps through following a friend into death, I'll learn more. But there are different understandings of what death is. But my sense of what death is really is that it's just a dropping of the form,
Okay.
and that that the clothes, as I mentioned, that consciousness is taken on, this body mind, fall away. They fall into decay. Consciousness is no longer attached to a body mind. Consciousness returns to its source in universal consciousness, right? The classic metaphor of the ocean and the waves. The waves arise, it's more like a swell on the ocean. It kind of goes for a while and it sinks back into the ocean. Yeah, that's my sense of what death is. And to the degree that the consciousness is attached to the form, there may be some struggle or some suffering, but really it's just a return to the ocean of awareness.
And so that has then no, on a broader scale, so doesn't really, like, it's not like a storm, like it's not like a storm's coming or a tidal wave or anything, to use that analogy.
No,
Okay.
See, that's we would dramatize it.
Okay.
And make it into a big deal. But I think from the perspective of consciousness,
Yeah.
it's absolutely ordinary.
Okay.
There's really nothing happening.
Okay.
From the
And
point of
then,
view, nothing is happening.
okay. And then I think the other that we often, within death, it is a gift, and often there is that moment of realization where death has been truly a release, a letting go of something. So whether it's been, say, somebody dying, a long journey with Alzheimer's, and finally achieving release, there really can be that other sense of it, that sense of relief, that I think sometimes we don't also acknowledge within that experience of death. A gratitude in some ways that their journey, their whatever, has moved on and gone a
Oh,
different
you're
way.
talking about the person who's dying or the person who's close to them?
The person who's close to them.
Right,
Yeah.
sure. There
Right.
can be a sense of relief. Yeah.
Right.
Suffering has come to an end.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's often, that's a very common experience when someone dies, particularly when someone has suffered or they're old and have had a long life. It's a sense of, oh yeah, they've come to rest, what a relief. Yeah. And of course we may experience that in our own death as well. The final and then that's it. There's no more ahs. The final exhale. Yeah. Hallelujah.
Alona here. May I say
Yes,
something quickly?
Alona, there.
I think Punjaji is someone's teachings who I have followed in the past. And I think it's said that on his deathbed, he said something like the Hindi word for enough, like enough. I think it was something like basta or something like
Basta.
enough. Yeah.
Well, basta is Spanish, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm not sure, but it was like, oh, enough.
Yeah, enough.
And then
Yeah.
and then
Great.
someone else, you probably, Stephen, could tell me who it was, but someone else died with the name of God on his lips. It was Ram.
Yep.
Gandhi. Yeah, Ram.
Gandhi. Yeah. Gandhi was shot, of course. Someone, a Hindu, ultra nationalist came forth from a crowd and shot him dead. And the last words he said, just as he was dying, was Ram, which of course reminds you that was on his lips constantly. That was the thought in his mind, always. Beautiful.
And Stephen, when I look at the image of you, I see your little bit of artwork in the background, and I see doors. I see portals.
Yeah, I know.
It's so
Beautiful.
wonderful, because we each have our portal of, how we're learning about death. And when I hear Shirley speaking so gorgeously about this emptiness, it makes me cry. It's just really beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. We each have our own doorway, exactly. And death is a doorway, beautiful doorway. Yeah. Thank you, Ellen. Beautiful. Yeah. We each have our own unique doorway, let's say. We have just about 5 minutes. Why don't we just sit together and rest in awareness? Huh?